What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the 9th episode of our Stags in the Studio of the 2024-2025 academic calendar year. I'm Logan Rundy, the Assistant Sports Director at WVOF. On the far side of the table, sophomore sports broadcaster Brendan Boudier. Our guest today, Coach Carly Thibault-DuDonis, is in her third year as the head coach of the Fairfield women's basketball team. Last year, she had a perfect 23-0 record against MAC opponents and unanimously won 2023-2024 MAC Coach of the Year. Her many awards include the 2023-2024 MAC Coach of the Year, like I just mentioned, 2023-2024 Maggie Dixon All-Met Coach of the Year, 2023-2024 ECAC Coach of the Year, and finally 2023-2024 K-Yao National Coach of the Year. So far this year, she's led her Stags to a 15-3 record overall, 9-0 in that conference play, and 7-1 at Leo D. Mahoney Arena. So far this year, her accolades, she is on the Kathy Delaney Smith Coach of the Year midseason watch list for her efforts thus far. Today's guest is none other than Coach Carly Thibault-DuDonis. It is a pleasure to have you in our studio today. Welcome in.
Thanks for having me. My first time in the studio, not just touring around with a recruit or something.
It is a pleasure to have you here, especially with your prominence in the last year or so. So just to kind of get started, how has life been? Andrew Jamison and Max Berryman talked to you on January 19th of last year. Obviously, a lot's changed with the MAC championship and a NCAA appearance. So just talk me through kind of how that magical season was before we get into this year.
Yeah, every time I get a chance to talk about last year's season, I think what stands out to me is, yes, we won and there was some amazing records and, 31-2 and so many individual accolades. But I think what made that team so special was just that everybody enjoyed being around each other every single day. And that sounds a little bit kind of like cliche and cheesy, but that group got along. And this year's that really does as well. But I think for that kind of being the first year with that kind of success, and it was never really about the success. It was about how everyone came to work every day, treated each other, brought each other energy. Not everyone had a great day every day, but they picked each other up. And literally anybody on our team could hang out with anybody, be around anybody, be partnered up with, and that made the day in, day out grind so much more fun. And so I look back on that team, and I don't think I've ever been around a group of 20 people that loved each other as much as that group did. So the success that came with it is all that, just that much more rewarding. And then obviously we go to the NCAA tournament and play in an amazing atmosphere at Indiana. And while it didn't go the way we wanted it to, we were in that game for about 3 quarters. There's a lot to be taken from that. We don't want to have to play on someone's home floor again. So there's a lot of work to be done to push for a higher seed should we make the NCAA tournament again. But there's also that added carrot to not be complacent that we won the MAC. And that's the goal, year in and year out. But we didn't take that next step. And so this team's goal is to get even further than we did. And we know there's a lot ahead of us still to do that. But it's been a kind of a carrot dangled in front of us all off season.
So with a roster filled with a lot of returning players from last year, how does winning the MAC and getting to go to Indiana and play in March Madness affect the team this year and having that past experience setting you up for success in this season?
Yeah, and I don't know what the actual, as far as across the country, if we have some of the most, the highest returning scoring in the country, but we got to be up there. Obviously losing Nelly, we lost a little bit with that and with her ACL tear, but I think the nice thing about that is that not only did we not have to kind of start at the bottom as far as reteaching everything, we were able to have a lot of continuity, and I think that was really valuable, particularly early in the season. But we did add 5 new players, 2 freshmen and 3 transfers, and those returners were able to kind of put them under their wing, show them the way on and off the court. I think our culture part of that is just as important in what we do and how we're able to be successful. So we've got great leadership. We had all 3 of our captains return in Janelle Brown, Isabella Nicoletti-Leite, and Lauren Beach. And then we kind of have a captain's development group, and 2 of those 4 are returners as well. So we have so many people that can kind of, even when I'm not in the room, when I'm not in the weight room, when I'm not in the locker room, there's so many people that are constantly holding the standard. And then it's also, makes it a little bit easier from a X's and O's standpoint, where 4 of the 5 or 3 of the 5 on the court kind of knew what was going on early on. So, but there's also growing pains with that too, of finding chemistry with people who are going to play big roles. We see a lot of those newbies playing big roles. And so I think we were still working out some of those kinks as well.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned having transfers this year, how does the transfer portal changing over the last couple of years, and how does that affect your coaching and the way that you guys play as a team?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, at Fairfield, it's a great advantage particularly on the women's side, because a lot of our women, and it's one of the reasons that I love coaching here, they pick Fairfield for the right reasons. It's the right fit, whether it's distance from home or degree or people. And so I think that we get women who want to stay to get their degree from Fairfield, and we don't have to worry. I'm not saying we're going to be perfect and always have everybody stay all the time, but we have women that want to stay here, and so we don't necessarily worry in the same way that some other places have to, as far as every year recruiting a new team. And then we also can be picky about who we do recruit, because if we don't get out of high school the ones that we want, we don't necessarily have to just take somebody just to take somebody. We can wait and take someone that fits that role better from the transfer portal. So we're able to kind of bring in need-based positions. We don't really have the stringent positions, but people that fill roles that we need. And so we can really kind of find a great balance between high school and transfer recruits. And, shout out to our university. I think the one-year master's programs really help for graduate students and things like that. Being able to come and get your MBA in a year is huge. And we've had a lot of people who are very driven academically that's a huge sell for.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I think we talk about Fairfield as more of a prominent university rather than a sports school, if you will. But now that our sports are rising, it helps with that transfer portal, and it helps for high school seniors to make that decision to come to Fairfield. We've seen a couple of your recruits commit in the past couple of months. So I want to focus our attention back to this year. So with a prominent year, just like last year was, you're going to get a little bit tougher of a non-conference schedule. 3 of the first games were non-conference, so at Arkansas on November 4th. Versus Richmond here at Leo D. Mahoney Arena on Tuesday, November 12th, at Oklahoma State in Stillwater, Oklahoma on the 16th of November. So just talk me through, how was that like to travel and to face these opponents that you don't see very often?
And that's something, we wanted to challenge ourselves early. We knew we would have all this, scoring, returning, and we knew, as we mentioned, kind of not to go back to last year, but to not be playing on home floor of Indiana or whoever it is this year, we needed to be at a 12 seed or better. We were a 13 seed. So that was very intentional of increasing our strength of schedule, rising our net so that we can get to that 12 seed, the women's tournament, the 12 seed and lower at neutral sites. So that was something, it was intentional to go do that. And it was obviously always fun going to travel to different places. First SEC road win, I think in MAC history maybe. I know it was in school history. I'm not sure about MAC history, but that was an awesome experience. And I used to recruit that area a lot when I was at Mississippi State. And, I think a lot of our women's first time in Arkansas. But just having a tough non-conference, obviously winning there was great. Having a really tough test from, Richmond and Oklahoma State. We want to be battle tested by the time we get to the MAC, and hopefully, if, it all works out that we win the MAC, that we're ready to play a really tough opponent when we get to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think that's worked out so far, 9-0 in conference play. Just talk to me kind of the off-the-court stuff. We talked to Katie Lamro and Coach E. Brown a couple of months ago, and they were talking to me.
I'm sure that was really boring.
It was definitely not. It was a good time for sure, but they were talking about all the off-the-court stuff you guys are going to do at that Charleston Southern and Wake Forest, 2 games in 3 nights. Just talk kind of what off-the-court values you guys have, activities you guys do to get closer. What is that like? I feel like for a team to be successful, you have to be family. Yeah. That's a word that Coach Erica Brown uses consistently. So what was that like? What did you guys do down there, and how did that get you guys closer as a team?
Yep. So I can't remember if this was around when you guys did. I know we went, and I don't know if they already mentioned this, but we went axe throwing in Oklahoma State. Did they mention that?
They did.
Yeah,
so
we did. So that was one of the team bonding opportunities that we had. So when we were in the Carolinas, we took the team to a really nice dinner in Charleston. It's obviously a beautiful area, and because we drove after our game at Charleston Southern to Wake Forest, we didn't get to stay there another night. But it was nice to just have a great team meal. Everyone just kind of fellowship, put their phones away. That's a big thing for me. Is it doesn't always have to be an axe throwing or something fancy and scheduled. It's more so to spend the time. And I think our team does a nice job of that, of when they are together, they're playing a game, they're spending time off the court. Even with our coaches, I'm very intentional. It's not like these set, rigid meetings of I have to make sure I have to talk to everybody once a week or twice a week. It's just when people come in the gym, ask them how they are and spend time with them. How can I help? And I think that's what our, top to bottom, our group does a good job of, just genuinely being interested in one another. But, it wasn't too bad to have a nice team meal, a couple nice team meals there as well.
Sure.
So you mentioned Mississippi State and your recruiting out there, and you're so much success at a young age right now. Where did
you called me young. Thank you.
Where did your career path take you? And I know you went and played at Monmouth and after Monmouth, and how it led you to here at Fairfield, not being from this area.
Yeah. So I did go to high school in Connecticut. Fun little known fact. It was a long time ago, but and so that's why I'm glad you called me young. So I did play at Monmouth, and then I loved being in the gym. I've been in the gym my entire life with my dad coaching, my brother coaching, and I knew I wanted to stay around the game somehow. To be honest, I wasn't ready to be done playing. You can ask any of my college teammates. I think I cried for 4 straight days after my senior year was done, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And part of me really wanted to keep playing. I probably could have played at some lower levels overseas, but I think I knew ultimately I was going to coach, and I got a great job offer to go coach at Florida State as the director of recruiting under Sue Semrau. And so that was something I just couldn't pass up, and started there. Really thankful I worked for her. She's the GOAT as far as not just as a basketball coach, but how she treats people, her staff, her players. It was very much about the people around her, and I'm really thankful. I learned that from her at a young age. But then I've made stops. I went to Eastern Michigan for 2 years as an assistant, 2 years at Mississippi State as an assistant coach and recruiting coordinator, and then 4 years at the University of Minnesota. The last couple as an associate head coach. So a variety of experience, and I'm really thankful for that, and that I got to work for great people who all coach differently. I think that's a huge thing as a young coach. It's not about hopping around, because I really tried to be where my feet were at every stop, but I just learned so many different ways to do things. There's so many different ways to win. And then the key then when you become a head coach is taking all those and figuring out who you are. I can't do it the way that Vic Schaefer did it, or that Sue did it, or that Lindsay Whalen did it. I had to kind of figure out what was authentic to me and take bits and pieces of all that and make it my own. And that's what I think has been most fun about being a head coach, is that I can really make a program that's reflective of my values and how I like to play and coach the game.
Yeah, and we'll get back to the season in a minute, but just with how big women's basketball has gotten over the years, and especially with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, what do you think, besides Caitlin Clark being one of the biggest names in women's sports, what do you think has made women's sports so much more popular and gotten a bigger draw from so many more people than it ever has been?
Yeah, I think there's so many different layers to that. Obviously, having multiple stars like that, there's been several over the last, you could even go back to 10, 12 years ago, closer to when I graduated, when there was the 3 to see. It was Elena Deladon, Brittany Griner, and Skylar Diggins. And that, I think, was the beginning of having these stars and personalities and people that women's sports fans are drawn to. They're definitely more drawn to knowing a person than they are just stats and can you dunk and all that. So I think that, and then I think that there's been an intentionality to actually make it more visible. I think between social media and different ways you can watch games, that the age-old testament is that if you build it, they will come, and if you invest in it, people will show up. And so there's been an investment, and I think that's a huge thing for people across the country, whether it is sports media or it's athletic directors or it's owners of franchises, is that the more you invest in it, the more you're going to see from it. So I think you see it on both sides of it, that people are drawn to really great women who do things the right way. In addition to, now they're actually able to access that. And it's a great product. I think the talent level, the skill level has only gotten better and exponentially better in the last 15 years. And you're seeing women do amazing things. I always say it's an awesome time for Fairfield to be on the national stage, because we've got great women here across sports too. A shout out to so many of our other women's sports that are doing amazing things. Laura Field's amazing with women's lacrosse, and you could go down the line of all these programs that are doing awesome things. So I think it's a little bit of everything, and I'm really fortunate. I'll shout out Paul Schlickman, our athletic director, who from day one of my interview has been committed to being invested in women's basketball, and that pays off.
Definitely.
And you make a great point how women's basketball is growing, not only at the college level, but at the professional level. It's funny we're doing this interview today because Kelsey Plum got traded yesterday to LA. So that'll be great for women's basketball, and we'll see how that goes as well.
Yeah, we don't see those blockbuster trades as much in the WNBA. So
I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, oh my goodness. But back to this season. Let's flash back to last week, January 23rd. It is a Thursday morning basketball game here in Fairfield, Connecticut. It was Kids Day. For those that don't know, Leo D. Mahoney Arena holds 3,500 people. Okay. There were 3,573 kids running around Leo D. Mahoney Arena. How was that experience? I was at Kids Day last year broadcasting. I had a ton of fun. I couldn't hear myself. Just talk me through how that experience was, and for your players just to see that support for this program.
I know I proactively took some Advil before the game at about 9:30, just, to make sure that I was ready to go. But no, I mean, shout out to our marketing team, Sarah Ratchford, Zach Dayton. They did an amazing job. I think there was a lot of stress and blood, sweat, and tears leading into that to make sure that we could fit all 3,573 and safely do so. And so it's such a full circle moment, because I know we talk about with our women all the time about they all had somebody that they remember watching, being around, learning from at a young age that played the game. And we talk about it as a team all the time that they are so much bigger than basketball, and we as a program can have an impact just beyond winning games. And our women are phenomenal about that, about investing in the community. I mean, you see it every game. They go up into the stands and sign autographs and take pictures for 40 minutes after every game. And so they thrive on that, and I think people feel important around our team. And so to be able to do that on such a large scale, I know it was really not only rewarding, and I was sitting there like a proud mom watching them do that, but they love that, and they really pour their heart and soul into that. And I think that's why this team is so likable.
Yeah, I mean, we see them ooze with pride to play for, this university, and that's super important. You want to have student athletes that love to play for your school, and I think that's eminent throughout your team and your coaching staff as well. I want to kind of switch gears over to our athletic staff, and President of Fairfield, Mark Nemec. He's always courtside. He always has great socks on. I love that guy.
He's always yelling at the refs.
Always.
More importantly.
How is it to have a president of the university be at almost every single game and just support not only Fairfield women's basketball, but Fairfield athletics as a whole?
It's something that, to be honest, I don't think I realized how unique, how special that was until my assistant coach, Eric Johnson, on my staff. He's been a head coach for 10 plus years before here. He'd been at Boston College, Denver, and then an assistant coach at a variety of places. And now I was trying to kind of lure him back into the game to come coach here. I had him come down to campus and do a tour and meet everybody. And that was something he said almost on one of those very first days, is the alignment from the top. And starting with Dr. Nemec and working its way down through Paul and Zach and everybody in the athletic department. And that's so I don't want to say underappreciated, but undervalued, I think, across the country, that you have an athletic director that's so invested and a president that's so invested. And I will never forget it when we were playing in, I think, the student faculty basketball game last year. He was like going for blood. Like, he was ready. He was he was diving on the floor for loose balls. He was like, I can't shoot, but I'll rebound and I'll get you the ball. And I was like, this man is invested. And I think our women feel that. I think they understand how much support they have. And you mentioned the transfers. We have women from other universities who are like, this is not like this everywhere. And make sure our team, that this is all they know, the ones that came in right as a freshman, know how special this is. And it definitely starts with him. I love his fire. I love his passion. He's right there yelling at every ref with me. So it works out perfect.
Yeah, I'll tell you, if I had to box out President Mark Nemec, I would not want to do so.
Oh, yeah. No, he was not afraid of taking out anybody's legs.
Yeah, no, it's great. When I see, your student athletes on tour, when I see Coach E. Brown giving those tours, that's probably the best person to give those. That's alongside you with that golf cart going around. And you can just see how much your staff and the Fairfield University community makes them feel involved the moment they step on campus. And I think that's why you guys are so successful. Brendan?
Yeah, should keep going about like a school. Fairfield being a Jesuit school, does that have any role into how you coach or the student athletes that you're bringing here? Or is the Jesuit school more of just a schools thing and separate from the sports?
And, to be honest, I wasn't necessarily raised Jesuit or Catholic, but I do resonate so much with the values of the Jesuit institution, of like men and women serving others, peace and justice, and so many of you could kind of go down the line of all these things. And so I think that really has been purposeful for me and for our team to really be a space. And you mentioned how the community kind of embraces our women, is that we really are intentional to create a space where all belong. And, whether it's at our games, in our locker room, in our program. And I think that really stems from those Jesuit values, and being, caring for the whole person. And that's something that I know I find my purpose. I love basketball. I love coaching basketball, but I really can care for the whole person and help somebody be their best selves through basketball. And so I know that resonates with me. And then I think that really bleeds through our team and how they interact with our community of really being a space where you can come as you are, serve one another, love one another, be there for one another. We talk about being selfless all the time. And I know you mentioned family, but I think that just goes along so much with that. And I think our community really is drawn to that our women carry themselves that way.
Yeah, you talk about being there for one another. I mean, you just watch these games, and Logan mentioned family, and you said the chemistry you guys have, and you can really see it. And especially, I mean, you look at Nelly, I mean, such a tough loss, but she's still there. Like, I mean, but when she's on the court, I mean, she is just awesome to watch picking up her teammates. I mean, all of them, but Nelly is always fired up, and it's special to see with that chemistry that you guys definitely have. Yeah,
Nelly is never at a loss for energy. And a great example in case of point of that is, so she tore her ACL third quarter with Villanova, took her back, did the kind of like early test to see if that's what it was, and they told her it probably was, but she had to still get the MRI in the next day, and she was like, all right, and I picked herself up, and then grabbed some crutches, and then was like behind the bench the rest of the game. Was like the loudest person in the stands. Still, she was behind the bench with crutches, hollering, coaching, yelling, helping. And this was like 5 minutes after she learned that she probably tore her ACL. So I think that speaks volumes of her. And when your leader of your team is like that, it's pretty special.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you guys still got to win that day. And I think a huge part of that is, 74-71 victory. Your stud goes out in the third quarter, comes back. I actually thought she was going to play. I didn't see her on crutches when I saw her come out the tunnel. I thought she was coming back to play. I'm like, there's no way. How did your team rally around that? I mean, when your star goes down, it's tough to come back. It's emotionally draining. It's hard to play at that point, and it was probably a 15, 20-minute hiatus. So what was the huddle like? What was that all about? Who stepped up in that situation, and how did you guys rally to win that game?
I think her coming back the way that she did to give back to her teammates really, they were like, what are we going to do, sit here and pout while she's having, she's taking this attitude. And so I think her just being who she is was a huge part of that. I think, we saw so many people step up in that game. And since then, I mean, Katie Lamro's been phenomenal. Isa, Nicoletti Leite, they both play the point as well. And they've been great, since that moment, even before that moment and beyond. But I think Katie really has stepped up and not try to do it and fill Nelly's shoes, but she's become kind of the aggressor in a lot of ways that Nelly was to create for others and get feet in paint offensively. And then, I mean, she's so solid defensively. So I think those guys both did, but we've seen it across the board that this program's never been about one individual. We've got great individuals, but they all, if Nelly was having a bad day, then Katie was great. And if Amina was having a good day and Meg was having a good day and they were picking up somebody, it was always somebody that was able to step up, and that's kind of the beauty of our depth. So it wasn't just on one person's shoulders to fill her void.
Yeah, and we talk about individuals, but this is really as a team effort. But I want to focus on Isa Nicoletti Leite. She, at the beginning of the season, I'm not sure where it's at now, she led the country. She was like top 10 in assist-to-turnover ratio. How has her play this year on both sides of the ball impacted this team in a positive way?
She's someone that, so to go back a little bit on her journey, you talk about Nelly tearing her ACL. Isa did it twice at Florida State. She did it back-to-back years, her freshman and sophomore year, which is why she's now 25 years old playing basketball at Fairfield.
Sure.
But she is someone that can help Nelly. That I've been there and help her through that. But as she was kind of getting back and then transferring to Fairfield, she had really not had a whole lot of actual playing experience due to those injuries. And so her progression has been really fun to be a part of, because her first year she's like, I'm just so excited to have a role and play, and was really more of a scorer's mentality. And then last year we had such a good team, she took more of a facilitator role because she wasn't super efficient in her first year. Our team needed her to be aggressive, and we didn't have as many scorers all around. And then last year she was much more facilitated, to the point where we're like, Isa, shoot the ball, like you're wide open. And then this summer she goes, end of the summer, early September, played with her Brazilian senior national team, and they needed her to do everything. And it was a great precursor to what she is for us now, is where she's now found a balance of both. She's found a balance of I can go score, I can create, and I think it's allowed her efficiency in all areas, assist to turnover, 2-point percentage, 3-point percentage, really to flourish because she's just now taking what the defense gives her and not feeling like she has to be slotted in any particular role, just doing what the team needs. And I think her maturity, the way that she does that is we're certainly going to miss it. But again, I think her teammates, what they're going to remember about Isa is just the passion and the energy. She's similar to Nelly, but they do it differently. Every single day in practice, she's trying to find ways to get people going and excited and joyful to be there. And she never takes a day of practice for granted.
So you mentioned Issa being older and Nelly's in grad school, but then you also have Katie and Meg who are sophomores and they're young. How does that work as a team, having stars that have already graduated versus stars that were freshmen last year and just got here?
It's a great balance. I think that's a sign of a good team, that you're not just, year to year trying to make it to the next group of freshmen. I think having a blend of it all is important. I think last year we used to joke like the freshmen just didn't know what they didn't know and they just went out and played and they didn't overthink it. Whereas like senior, sometimes you're like trying to make sure you're doing everything perfectly. But I also think that those guys, I think Lammy and Meg would tell you that they've learned so much from our upperclassmen. You could throw Mina in that group of seniors, who's been a great mentor for all of our road runners. And there's such a cool level of mentorship that goes back and forth. So I think it's part of the kind of recipe that's been so good for this team.
Switch gears a little bit. We talked earlier about your path to coaching, and you mentioned your dad and siblings being coaches. Like, how is your dad WNBA coach? How has that shaped you as a coach, or are you different from him, or do you learn from him?
Yeah.
How has that shaped you?
No, I definitely learned from him. I definitely have a lot of similarities. We always joke. So my brother was on my dad's staff for 10 years, I think, almost, and they were a great pair. My brother's a lot more laid back. I'm very similar to my dad. I don't think we could have worked together. I think one of us would have ended up dead. So it's probably a good thing. But I definitely am wired similarly, a little bit feisty, a little bit stubborn. But just from an actual X's and O's standpoint, I think I learned so much from him, as far as we talk a lot about being an efficient offensive team, just how to build that with having great shooters. That's something that I learned how to shoot from him. I was a shooter, and it's something, when you talk about building something that reflects how I like to coach and play the game, I think that comes from him. And so we've built it. We try to make Fairfield Shooters U, where everybody on the floor can shoot. And I've learned so much from him and my brother about like spacing and how to put people on the floor to give each other space to operate. Skill development, I've learned a ton from my brother in that area throughout the course of my life. So I've taken a ton, but I also know I am different, and I have different skills as well, as far as my role as a younger female head coach, how I can be relatable in that way, how I can build relationships in that way. It is a different, relationship when I played at this level. And so I think I am different in a lot of ways, but I think my brother and I always joke I'm a little bit probably feistier than he is. He's definitely more laid back, but hot off the press as of this morning, my dad actually just took the Belgian national team head coaching job. So that just happened about an hour ago.
That's awesome.
So he just can't give it up.
Coaching keeps on going.
Yep.
Breaking news.
Yep.
Would you ever want to get your brother on the staff here with you?
I would, of course. I would love to have him, but he definitely loves the pro game. And not saying he would never go to college, but he definitely loves that side. And not that it's all that different as far as the game, but there is a different way of building a roster with a salary cap and thinking that way, and how you develop your players off the court and out of season. It's just a very different kind of cycle and routine that I think fits him well. So I'm not saying it would never happen, but I think we're both very much suited. I'm very suited for the college game, and he's very suited for the pro game.
We talk about the coaching staff, and this staff is one of the most fun staffs in college basketball, period.
Yes.
That's just my opinion. I told Coach Ian Katie Lamoureux this
Clock
last time. I want it on record. From Eric Johnson to Erica Brown to Alex McKinnon, Ainsley Flynn, and more importantly, Blake DuDonis. How is all that relationship? That's a lot of personality in one huddle. How is it coaching with your husband alongside? And, how do you keep it basketball when you're here at Fairfield and, life back at home? So how is all that? I know that's a loaded question, but how is all those relationships for you?
No, my staff's amazing. They save me from myself like once a day. I think that they are so what's the word I would use? They're such pros. And I think when I was, the amazing thing about my staff is that when I was learning how to be a head coach, and now I'm in year 3, but particularly year 1, going into year 2, I didn't have to teach them how to do their jobs. And I think that's really hard when you're a new head coach. You're also trying to teach someone how to be a recruiting coordinator and how to do this and how to do that. They all were so good in their areas that I didn't have to help them learn their job while I was learning mine. And so Eric and Blake have both been head coaches before. And so they thought about things that I never did and how to maybe think ahead on a few things or do things a little bit differently. Whenever I had something that came up, I would immediately go to my staff and be like, all right. And it wasn't just me trying to do it all. And so I think that was huge. But having my husband on my staff has been awesome. I mean, we get asked all the time because every person that finds that out, they're like, I could never work with my spouse.
I had to know. I was like, I'm wondering how it is.
Yeah, it's very natural, to be honest. When he was a head Division III coach and I was at Minnesota, we would both come home and talk about our teams and bounce ideas off each other. And now we're just doing it about the same team, which is actually, it's nice for problem solving.
Sure.
But that's something that when we were hiring Eric and Erica, that question very naturally came up from them of like, how's that going to be? What's that going to be like? Is it going to be your guys' decision versus everyone else? And we were honest, like we're gonna talk about stuff at home. We're not just gonna go home and talk about the weather. We're gonna still watch film and talk about the team. But I never ever make a decision in those moments. We always bring things back to the staff. I always talk about or if something big is needs to be decided right away, I'll call my staff on a conference call and we'll talk through things. It's never just and I think the cool thing is it's never just our decision first, but my husband and I actually think very differently. And so I think we're a lot of times on the opposite ends of spectrums of a debate. And like my staff is somewhere in the middle. Okay. Not always, but we think differently. And so I think it works. And Blake's done a great job of kind of building his own relationships with everyone, whether it's our players or our staff. So it's not like a two-headed monster, if that makes sense.
Interesting. No, it's really cool. I'm sure you get this question a lot. I'm definitely not the first, but being at the games, I see it's a very professional, environment. So
most people don't know that we're married. It's actually kind of
really
hilarious. We've had a recruit come on campus and was like shocked when she found out that we both had a dog named RJ and then realized that we were married. So.
That's crazy. Let's take a look kind of into the future a little bit. You have 11 games left. They are all MAC opponents. Some are on the road, some are at home. How do you guys stay focused on the present without looking too far ahead to the postseason?
Mm-hmm. One of our kind of, I'll say mottos, one thing we talk about a lot, and I'm big on the kind of the mental side of the game. My background's in sports psychology. So one of our kind of taglines is like, be where your feet are. And it's easier said than done. But this team knows the importance of each game and doing what we do. And we've talked a lot about, when we mentioned earlier, the seeding and the one of the metrics they use for that is the net of how you win each game, not just winning by 5, but winning by 25 makes a big difference in that metric. And so they've understood that. And I think we've become a more consistent team because they realize, okay, we can just win this game by 10. And it matters that we went and won 2 games by 40. Not that we're trying to blow anybody out and be ruthless about it, but playing the right way every possession will matter as we get deeper into the season. I don't think I have to worry too much about having their attention this week. With the next game with Quinnipiac, it's going to be an amazing atmosphere, a great game. But I think that particularly we mentioned that some of the seniors on our roster, they understand the importance of every game and knowing that this league is good and that there's people that pick people off all the time and that we're going to get everybody's best shot. So I've got great leadership, and that certainly helps.
You mentioned Quinnipiac this week. How does playing a team like Quinnipiac, where you're both in Connecticut, only 30 minutes away, change from a different game where the rivalry might not be there as much?
Rivalry games are the best. I think that our team understands the stakes, and for me, I'll have to be cognizant of making sure that they're not too amped, that they don't play out of character or don't just do what they do, because this is going to be a great game in 2 great teams, and it's going to be a little bit of a battle of schemes and systems. We play differently. And so I hope that we have a great home crowd. I think that they certainly thrive with a great home crowd, and I hope that's a shameless plug for all of anybody that's listening to come out. But again, I go back to our leadership and how well they do as far as just being themselves and making sure that everybody is ready to go.
For those that don't know, Quinnipiac 16-2 overall, 8-1 at home, 7-1 on the road. So they're definitely going to bring Fairfield a challenge on Thursday night. Fairfield 15-3, 7-1 at home, 8-2 on the road. Currently riding a 9-game win streak. So that's a big game Thursday night. Just kind of on our path to wrapping up here. As a coach, everybody has kind of their message or persona they want to leave behind. What do you want your impact to be when it's all said and done at coaching here at Fairfield, but even in the future as well?
I think on the kind of micro level, I try to be my best self for everybody that I'm around. I think my purpose is to help everyone be the best version of themselves. And I really do. It sounds like, I think, again, I go back to it sounds a little cliche, a little bit cheesy, but I think my skills are such that I can coach the game, but I can help be a mentor and a coach in life. And we get women at the age of 17, 18, and by the time they graduate, 23, 22, 23, 24, 25 in our case. I want them to be empowered to go be whoever they want to be. I think on the kind of more macro level, it's that I can create an environment and a space where diversity and people of all different experiences are welcomed, are valued, understand their importance in this world. And I think that goes back to the micro level of being able to understand your value and not let anybody take that from you. So I think just the empowerment that comes with this opportunity, I want to look back and have women come back 30 years from now and talk about how this just being at Fairfield and being with this program and in this environment had made them better for the world, and that they can, while they're here, not only impact the younger generation, but then when they leave, they can go and impact at a higher level as well. So the game can do some amazing things and take you some amazing places, and to me it's just a vehicle for teaching life and helping people be their best self. Sure.
And what is your advice to young women that want to pursue basketball or want to play in the WNBA, the D1 college level? I think, I always say this, everybody should follow their dreams. If you're young watching us or listening to what we're doing, I know I'm following my dream right now. Don't think a year and a half ago I'd be sitting next to the head women's basketball coach at this wonderful university. So what's your piece of advice? What's your message or call to action for those younger generations of girls out there?
I think if you love it, then do everything you can so that you have no regrets. I think that's something that's carried me a long way of I don't ever want to look back and be like, oh, I could have done more. I could have done this. I could have invested more. I could have spent more time. And you got to love it. If you don't love it, find what you do love. Don't do it because mom or dad wants you to do it or coach wants you to do it. Do it because you want to. I think first and foremost, find out what you love and what you lose track of time when you're doing it. And then go all in from there. Hard work is a part of it, but work on the right things. I think that's a huge kind of misconception that if I just work really, really hard, it'll work out. It's working really hard and working on the right things, working with the right people. I think that all kind of goes hand in hand to help you get to where you want to go. And then again, ask questions, be coachable, be a sponge. Nobody knows everything, myself included. And so just continue to learn from the people around you.
That's awesome. Great message for girls out there and boys. I mean, everyone follow your dreams and do what you love. Really, it's an awesome thing. And before we let you go, get back to practice today, getting ready for Quinnipiac, I'll give you a couple of questions, quick hitters.
Okay.
A little personal, let the people get to know you a little bit better. Favorite restaurant in town here at Fairfield?
I feel kind of like I could be, a little bit of a traitor, but I don't want to alienate anybody. But I love tacos, so my two taco spots that I go to all the time are Bodega and Malibu.
Very good. Malibu's choice. Very good.
Yep.
Favorite professional athlete, past or present?
Well, I definitely am biased on this. It's definitely Lindsay Whalen. So she was the first, when I was in, I'm trying to think, it was 8th grade and I was going into high school. She was playing for my dad, and she was the first ever female that I'd seen play the way that she played. She used her body. She was physical. She finished kind of it was the first time I'd seen a woman finish like men always had, with spin on the ball and wide finishes and all this stuff. And she just was so creative as a point guard. And then I got to work for her, which made that even more special when I was at Minnesota. So, and she's just an even better person than she was a player. So definitely her.
That's great. Before a game, do you have a go-to meal?
Whatever they feed us, whatever Alex McKinnon and Aislinn Flynn on my staff bring for pregame meal. I'm not picky. And I'm not superstitious either. Side note.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not very superstitious.
Do you know any of the girls on your team? Are they?
Of course, they all. Yeah. They all have their
routines.
Quirks and things. And I'm not necessarily, I have my routines. I have things I do. I meditate before every game. I have my game notes and all that. But if I don't do it in the perfect order or the perfect time, I don't, it just needs to get done.
On your playlist, do we have a top song right now?
Man, Brendan Boudier with a quick hitting question.
I know.
Wow.
I've been heavy on the gospel lately, so I've had some.
Okay.
Yep, I've had some really good gospel songs that have come across. I think my most recent one was a Jonathan Traylor song called, what was it called? Hope, maybe.
Okay.
Yep.
There you go. And last one, favorite team to play when you're here at Fairfield?
Whoever we got next, so I'll say Quinnipiac
I love
right now.
that. I love that answer.
Man, what a fun time we had. To watch or listen to any of WVOF Sports content, go to WVOF Sports on YouTube. Follow our Twitter at WVOF Sports. Also follow WVOF Radio on Instagram. From myself, Logan Rundy, your assistant sports director here at WVOF. Excellent, funny, talented. I could go on and on about Brendan Boudier on the other side of the table from our wonderful guest, Coach Carly Thibault-DuDonis. What a pleasure it was for us to have you in the studio. Good luck with the rest of the season. I know we're going to be on the journey with you, so we're super excited and can't wait to see all the wonderful things you guys do.
Thanks for having me. Go Stags. See you Thursday.
Go Stags.
Go Stags.